Hi, I'm Kristina. My parents used to call me useless, their favorite word when they wanted me small. They said I owed them everything, even my silence. But one night, I opened a file I was never supposed to see and their names glowed red across my screen. That's when I realized, the people who raised me weren't protecting me, they were watching me. The house looked exactly the same, and somehow completely different. That front porch still had the dent where I fell off my bike at 7. The pine tree by the mailbox was taller now, but still leaning east like it remembered the storms. I parked my car and sat for a moment, staring at the front door, just wood and paint, but it felt like a gate to something heavier. I stepped inside. No one rushed to greet me. Just a flicker of movement from the kitchen, a half glance from my sister-in-law, and a tight smile that said, "You again?" The air smelled like turkey and tension. I wiped my shoes on the mat, out of habit, not welcome, and walked in. It hit me, nothing here had moved forward. The furniture, the colors on the wall, even the same fake ivy draped above the kitchen cabinets. But time had passed. I had passed. And now it felt like I was walking into a courtroom where the verdict had already been decided. They say home is where you go when you run out of options. But standing there, I felt more like a defendant on trial. Dinner was exactly what I expected, loud voices from the others, a dozen conversations I wasn't invited to. Plates passed over my head. No one asked if I'd been doing okay. No one even asked why I came alone. When my cousin Lauren bragged about her kids making on a roll, my mother chimed in, "You always had that drive, Lauren. Some people just don't." She looked directly at me when she said it. I smiled through it. Quietly. I didn't need their approval. I had work. Real work. The kind that mattered. But I couldn't say anything about it. Classified meant classified. So I sipped my water and said nothing. Then my brother, always the charming one, grinned and leaned over to his wife, loud enough for the table to hear, "Kristina's on the government payroll. Filing papers or something." My father didn't laugh. He just looked at me, expression flat, and said, "She means well. But let's be honest, she's always been the soft one. Not really built for anything serious." And then, silence. It wasn't long. Maybe 2 seconds. But it stretched. It burned. I didn't respond. Just smiled again. That tight, practiced smile that says, "I'm fine, even when you're not." Someone changed the subject. Football, or work gossip. I can't remember. I stared at my plate. The mashed potatoes were cold. Then Lauren's husband joked, "Guess we all have to carry the useless one, huh?" Laughter followed. Easy, careless, stupid. That's when I heard it. Barely a whisper. My father, to no one in particular, "She means well, but she's always been useless." My hands froze. Fork midair. I got up. I didn't slam my chair or throw a fit. I just stood and walked out the sliding door to the backyard. The cold air hit me like a slap, and I welcomed it. Behind the fence, the woods were dark and silent. That was the first time I let myself breathe all evening. They had no idea. None of them knew what I did. What I'd sacrificed. I worked where the stakes were life and death. Where silence wasn't a weakness, it was protocol. I wanted to yell, "You don't know me." But I didn't. I never did. When I was 10, I won a school essay contest. They invited parents to the ceremony. Everyone came, except mine. I sat alone in the third row, clutching the certificate. That night, I told myself it didn't matter. That maybe they were busy. That I didn't need anyone to clap for me. But the truth? I've been chasing their approval ever since. Back then, I thought working for the government would earn their respect. It didn't. Now, even the silence felt like a weight pressing on my chest. I gripped the railing. Thought about the oath I took. Thought about the files. The ones locked down so tight, even some senators didn't have access. They think I'm nothing. But I've been protecting this country from shadows they don't even believe exist. I heard the screen door slide open behind me. Then close again. No one came out. Probably just checking if I'd run off crying. That would fit their story, wouldn't it? But I wasn't crying. The thing is, when you hear something enough times, you start to believe it. Not all at once. Not out loud. But it settles in, like rot. Quiet. Slow. And worse than them calling me useless was the part of me that nodded in agreement. I stared into the darkness, fists tight. I wasn't going to cry. That night, lying in my childhood bed, the sheets smelling of old detergent and dust, I couldn't sleep. So I did something I promised myself I never would. I opened the files. I didn't sleep much after opening those files. My body stayed still under the covers, but my mind ran marathons. The air felt thicker in that room, like the memories had mass. So just before dawn, I slipped on my shoes and went for a run. That's always been my reset button. Keep moving. Staying still was never safe. The cold bit into my lungs as I jogged past familiar streets, past houses still dark with sleep. The sidewalk was littered with crunchy leaves, golden and brown, a soft rhythm underfoot. For 20 minutes, I didn't think about the night before. I didn't think about the word useless hanging in the air like smoke. I just ran. And for a moment, I could pretend I didn't care. But the truth waited for me at the front door. As I stepped back into the house, my shirt damp with sweat, I noticed something off. The hallway light was on. My bedroom door, closed when I left, was now cracked open, just enough to make my stomach turn. I stood still. Listened. No sound. But my gut knew. I pushed the door slowly. The lock, one I installed myself, was scratched at the edge, like someone had jimmied it. The laptop I'd secured the night before sat closed on the desk. But my briefcase? Open. Files I had tucked into a compartment were gone. A chill ran deeper than the fall air. I walked downstairs, heart steady, breath held. And there they were. My parents and my brother, sitting casually in the living room, flipping through printed documents like they were coupons in a Sunday circular. "What are you doing?" I asked, voice even, quiet. My mother looked up. "Oh, you're back. We were just curious. You left these lying around." "I didn't." "Well, they weren't locked," she said with that tone she used when I was 10 and trying to explain missing cookies. My brother chuckled, holding up a page. "You act like these are top secret or something." "They are." My father smirked. "Oh, come on. You think you're in the CIA now? It's just paper." I stood there, frozen. Not scared, just stripped. The kind of violation that isn't loud. It's quiet. Insidious. You can't unsee it. "Put them down. Please," I said, more to the room than any one person. "You're so dramatic," my brother said. "Maybe if you let people in once in a while, we wouldn't have to snoop." That was it. That line. Have to snoop. Like curiosity gave them permission. Like their need to know outweighed my right to privacy. I remembered locking my diary when I was 15. They read it anyway. Said they were worried, said I shouldn't hide things. They never read to understand, only to control. My brother stood up, waving a few pages. "I'll help you organize this stuff. God knows you could use the help." That's when I slid my phone from my back pocket and tapped the emergency protocol. 3 times. Under the table. A silent trigger. One I'd hoped I'd never use. "I'll go make coffee," I said, stepping away before my hands betrayed me. In the kitchen, I leaned against the counter. My phone buzzed once. Signal received. I stared at the sink. Counted the scratches in the basin. Breathed. This wasn't about national security anymore. It was always bigger than that. It was about how people mistake control for love. How families use "we're just worried" as a leash. How they violate boundaries, then call you cold for building walls. But I wasn't cold. I was done. They never listened. Never cared enough to ask the right questions. And when I didn't offer answers, they went digging. "Your silence will not protect you." That quote had stayed with me since college. Audre Lorde. It felt different now. Not like a warning, but a choice. The hum of tires pulled my attention to the front window. The first black SUV turned onto the street. I didn't even flinch. I kept the house quiet that evening, pretending everything was fine. I washed dishes at the sink, rinsing away the turkey grease, and my temper. I replied to work emails, feigning normalcy while my mind raced. Every tick of the clock felt loud. At dinner, my mother set the plate before me without meeting my eyes. No words. Just the clink of cutlery and distant hum of the lights. I remembered a Southern saying my grandmother used to repeat: "When someone hands you sweet tea and a threat, smile, but don't drink it." I offered a soft smile, folded into that silence, all the while knowing the storm hadn't passed. Later, long after everyone else had gone to bed, sleep refused me. I paced the hallway until my throat was dry, until I forced myself to tiptoe toward the living room. Voices drifted out, low tones, urgent, familiar. I paused behind the wall and held my breath. My name crossed the air. "She's not stable. You heard what happened. We need to protect the family." My father spoke next. "I've spoken with Donnie about power of attorney. If we frame this correctly, get her evaluated." My spine clenched. I slipped my phone from my pocket and tapped record, careful not to make a sound. Back in my bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the voices replay in my mind. Scenes unfolded, accusations I'd suppressed, warnings I'd ignored. I recalled being told I was too sensitive, always imagining things. They never saw me. They feared I might finally be believed. My anger didn't erupt. It cemented. I opened my laptop and pulled up conservatorship laws, federal override statutes, examining every loophole. Morning light crept in as I carried the recording into the kitchen. My parents sat with coffee, quiet. I placed my phone on the table and pressed play. Their voices poured out, "Evaluate her, protect us, power of attorney." My mother paled. My father's face went hard. "You want to file paperwork? Go right ahead. But know this, I filed mine already," I said in a steady voice. He sputtered. She gaped. Their control cracked. The tone shifted. I felt clarity. Truth doesn't need volume, just timing. Later I emailed that recording to my lawyer. I sent a memo to my federal supervisor, professional, composed, prepared. I reflected on how gaslighters escalate when faced with challenge. I knew this was far from over. My brother left mid-afternoon, saying he needed space, but I recognized fear in his steps. If they treat me like the enemy, they should expect me to fight like one. I lay in darkness, eyes fixed on shapes in the ceiling, replaying the confrontation again and again. The voices, the tone, the way they made decisions about me without me, every detail branded into memory. This wasn't just conflict. It was design. I kept hearing over and over that women are asked to keep the peace at all costs. But at what cost? Dignity? Voice? I traced one corner of the ceiling with my gaze, thinking back to something my mentor once said, "A warning is only powerful if you're willing to follow through." That line felt different now. It was no longer speech. It was inevitable. When the hours passed without relief, I understood, I couldn't stay soft anymore. By dawn, I felt a shift. I moved quietly, purpose forming behind every step. In the bedroom mirror, I dressed in a sharp blazer and slacks, hair pulled back so no strand softened my face. I gathered my documents, copies, encrypted backups, and slid them into a sleek folder. Standing in front of the mirror, I drew a breath and whispered, "You're not their child today. You're your own damn authority," said it again for strength. I sat at my desk and typed 2 emails. One, to my lawyer, titled Home Interference, including the audio, annotations, timestamps. The other, to my agency contact, Potential breach internally. Records attached. Discretion advised. Sent. Click. Done. No hesitation. Underestimated again, but this time not by me. I echoed Maya Angelou, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." I had believed them, and now acted. I walked into the living room where my parents sat, coffee cups warm in their hands. The TV droned softly. My father glanced at me with a practiced smile. My mother avoided my eyes. I moved slowly, placed the folder on the table, neat, unshakable. "If you move against me again, legally, emotionally, socially, I will take this public. I will not go quietly." He laughed, a hollow, familiar sound. "That's absurd, Kristina." I met his gaze. "It's not absurd. It's preparation. You move, I counter. It's checkmate either way." My mother's eyes filled. "You're being cruel," she whispered. I shook my head. "It's not cruelty. It's consequence." I left the room before tears or protest could disarm me. Their silence behind me was heavier than any word they'd thrown. In my room, I sat, breathing slow. This wasn't victory. It was foundation. Rebuilding. Later that afternoon, Jess arrived unexpectedly with pie in hand. She saw me on the porch, laptop open, focus in my eyes. She sat beside me quietly until I said, "Things got serious." She nodded. "My own family's done the same." Act like control was love. I turned to her. How long before you stopped believing their story? Too long, she said, steady. But I eventually did. I handed her my folder, one copy. Just in case. She took it without question, eyes steady. You're not crazy, Kristina. You're brave. When she left, I stood watching her drive away, afternoon sun pale on the street. I thought that warning would hold them back. But control isn't surrendered. People like them fight dirty to keep it. I slipped into the house quietly, still in my work clothes, fatigued but alert. The silence felt heavier than any argument, too much space between us. My mother avoided my eyes when I passed through the living room. My brother stayed in his room, door half shut. I moved into my study and began organizing documents and evidence, setting them out so nothing was hidden, nothing ambiguous. I thought back to every moment in my life when my voice was silenced by louder ones. I told myself, they don't believe I'm watching. They don't know what I see. Later, my mother called for a family meeting. The invitation was in her hand when I walked into the room. I stared at my name, Katerina, a simple typo, she said. But the weight lay in the misspelling. Just a typo, you're never important enough to matter, she joked, as if this was light banter. That slur cut deeper than any argument. I held it in silence, letting it land. Before I could recover, my brother stepped from the hallway with a stack of files. I thought you left these downstairs, he said dismissively. Just a few files. Don't be dramatic. I flipped through them. At first glance they seemed the ones I'd lent downstairs. But then I saw the metadata, my original redacted watermark removed, anomalies in the revision logs. The files had been tampered with before being handed back. That just a few files was a betrayal dressed as procrastination. I called both my mother and brother into my study. The invitation, with the misspelled name, sat next to the correct version. I laid them side by side, letting the difference speak. Then I pulled up the logs, timestamps, change tracking, removal of redactions. My mother's face stiffened. You're twisting facts, she said angrily. I held her eyes. Facts don't get twisted. People do. My brother tried to interject, but I held firm. He flinched. I spoke over him. I had already forwarded original files to the DHS chain. I would file for federal oversight. Public transparency would be my shield. I warned them, any further small slights, I would document. No appeal. No excuse. I refused to let them gaslight me out of my own evidence any longer. My mother's voice cracked. Why do you treat us like the enemy? I answered quietly, but with resolve, because you've acted like one all along. My brother slammed the door and left. My mother sat still, expression blank, unable to find words. I retreated to my study and closed the door behind me. I sat at my desk, breathing slow, reviewing every piece of evidence again. My resolve hardened. They assumed I would remain polite. They didn't expect me to learn silence so fast, and strike so clearly. I sat in the foyer long after dark, the television upstairs humming through walls as though nothing had changed. Shadows stretched across the floors, swallowing corners of the house I thought I owned. The hush felt different now, weighty, charged. Daylight had died hours ago, but the air still smelled faintly like tension. I listened for movement, for voices. I replayed every warning I'd given. I braced myself. I had laid stakes in the ground, now I waited for the blowback. Across the street, I glimpsed a black SUV parked again, just outside, waiting. They think the worst is over. They have no idea how much remains unseen. My phone buzzed. I flipped it casually, but my pulse jumped. On the screen, in the DHS display, I saw their names glowing red. My parents. Red warning. My fingers froze as I locked the screen. From upstairs, footsteps paused. My mother gasped. My father's name in real time, red. I watched them glance toward me. Their faces drained, bitten by fear. I didn't smile. I recorded their reaction silently. Satisfaction laced with sorrow, they finally see me, but not as they expected. I rose and climbed the stairs deliberately. The hall smelled of old carpet and regret. I held the phone so they'd notice. When I reached their bedroom hallway, I confronted them. See this? I asked, voice steady. Their eyes flicked. My mother stammered, that's a system glitch. I shook my head. If it's a glitch, fix it. If it's not, admit it. My brother appeared in the hall then, blinking at the tension. You've been spying on us this whole time, he spat. Spying? I said. It's called safeguarding. You'd call it control. He advanced. His voice rose. Dad always said you'd never amount to much. That's why he thought transferring control was okay. Their silence shattered. My mother gasped, my father's face flickered. The betrayal laid bare, years of dismissal, hidden contempt exposed. Clarity flooded me. I demanded, did you ever see me as a threat? No answer. Only quiet. I led them to my study. Lights low, laptop open, evidence ready. I loaded metadata logs, emails. On screen, mocked comments, casual put-downs, conversations proving my brother's accusation. I turned the screen toward them. Their faces slack with shock. You wrote this about me, I said softly, pointing. My mother covered her mouth. My father looked away. None defended themselves. Sometimes the knife is already in your back, you just haven't felt the cold until the light hits it. Silence filled the space between us, tighter than walls. I let it hang there, a weight they had to carry. When I broke it, my voice was steady. Tomorrow I go to DHS headquarters with these files. Either you stand with me now, or you lose me forever. My father's mouth opened, closed, forced out a word, but nothing. My brother slammed his door upstairs. My mother remained seated, tears in her eyes. I turned, retreated to my room, closed the door. The lock clicked. Behind me, I heard the hallway door lock, my brother, barricading himself. Outside, the SUV's headlights flickered, then vanished. Behind closed doors, the house was silent, but the tide had already shifted. At midnight, I watched my father's silhouette pacing behind his door. The house he once commanded held him captive now. Maybe that's justice. I'd been ready for this day longer than I cared to admit. In the late afternoon light, I double-checked every file, confirmed every chain of custody line, verified that no copy was missing, no signature unsigned. My contacts at DHS had been alerted. My internal timer ticked, sunset would be the cutoff. I thought of every time I'd held back, trying to preserve peace, to protect fragments of family, but each time they'd use that space to erase me. Tonight, transparency would become unavoidable. When the first black SUV rolled in, I didn't flinch. Then more followed, engines humming. Cameras. Agents moving information. Neighbors peeked, blinds shifting. Agents emerged, badges clipped to jackets, ordering doors open. Within minutes they began search and seizure, devices boxed, wires traced, evidence tagged. My parents stood frozen in the foyer, eyes wide. My father stuttered, "We never thought it would go this far." My heart pounded but I stayed composed. I directed agents to follow my chain of command. If they asked, I had every right lined up. My brother ran to block the hallway. "You can't just invade a home," he yelled. I turned, quiet but firm, "You already did." The agents paused, the scanning stopped, eyes shifting. My mother yelled, "Kristina, stop this madness." I faced her head on. "There's nothing mad about reclaiming your life," I said. The room tilted between fear and clarity. An agent handed me official forms, complaints about unlawful access. I signed. Every stroke measured. Then I added, "I want a full audit. Chain of evidence protocol enforced. Nothing altered, nothing compromised." That signature transformed everything. This was no longer personal plea. It was legal action. As agents marched out, one new recruit paused at the threshold and asked, "You work here?" He looked at me, then at my parents. The room went dangerously silent. I held his gaze. "No. I built systems you enforce." My parents froze. The humiliation in that moment stung sharper than any argument. It revealed what they always denied: I was neither invisible nor powerless. The SUVs ride off. The street falls quiet, awkward. I stand in the doorway, watching tail lights fade. My brother is gone, mother does not look up. I feel both vindication and sorrow. I cost them something they never appreciated. I text Jess, "Tonight they saw me. Tomorrow they'll feel me." I prepare for fallout, media, agency scrutiny, but I feel different now. I've broken their norms. The night carries my proof. Dawn will carry the reckoning. A week had slipped by, unnoticed by my family. No calls. No emails. No fragments of apology or retaliation. In their silence, I felt something shift in me. It was strange how quiet could feel heavier than fury, how absence could echo louder than anger. I began to notice the difference in my own body, mornings that didn't feel like survival, breaths that weren't shallow, a heart less ready to panic. I reopened my journal and wrote, "Peace feels unfamiliar, like trying on someone else's coat." That line felt true and awkward in the same moment. When I returned to my therapist, I expected her to ask questions. Instead she said, "You are no longer bending to ghosts." I sat silent for a moment because her words landed differently than any accusation had. My sleep improved. The headaches that haunted me receded. I admitted to myself, in that safe room, I miss what I hoped they'd become, not who they were. That hope had cost me more than I realized. Then came the envelope. It arrived on a Thursday, plain, my father's handwriting on it. I let it sit for hours, staring at it, uncertain. Late afternoon, I carried it outside, sat on the steps to my apartment, and opened it. The letter was jagged, emotional, stilted. The first line sank into me, "You were right." The rest read like a wound trying to heal in public. "We used you because we couldn't build ourselves. You held everything together when we refused to. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope you breathe easier now." The words trembled. My chest constricted. A tear slipped before I could stop it, not for him, not for how late this came, but for the younger me who still waited for it. I folded the paper, held it a moment, then tucked it into a drawer. I didn't burn it. I didn't write back. Sometimes the end is silent. That night, I sat at my desk and changed my will. Removed every family name. Updated emergency contacts. It was symbolic and real. I logged off, went to the bedroom, and lay awake thinking. At dawn, the same day, a new coffee table arrived, a solid wood slab with simple lines. I built it piece by piece in my living room, each bolt tight, every surface aligned. It felt like reclaiming the foundation of my space. Jess dropped by that evening. She saw the table first, then me. "This is your new central point," she said. I answered, "Yeah, it's mine now." We sat close. She asked what I'd do if they reached out. She asked if my heart still wanted something from them. I shook my head. "I don't hate them," I said, "I just finally chose me." By midweek, the local blog posted a small piece on the DHS case, no names, just confirmation that the investigation was active. I submitted a short, anonymous statement, "Your data is yours, don't let history be weaponized." No drama. No spotlight. Just truth. Messages trickled in from strangers, people who had read the piece or seen echoes of themselves in it. Some said thank you, others said me too. I read them quietly, held them gently, and closed the tab. That acknowledgement was enough. When the storytelling night in the cafe rolled around, I signed on under a pseudonym. I stood under soft lights, held a microphone, and shared portions of my journey, not the whole war, but the part that needed air. My voice shook at first, then settled. The audience leaned in. I realized I wasn't afraid of exposure anymore. The fear had lifted. Then came the final walk. I drove out to the forest trail near the lake, the one I once walked with them when things felt simpler. I left my phone behind, carried only a thermos of tea, and walked at my pace. The path was damp and soft. Leaves brushed my boots. I reached the lake's edge, stood until the water was still and silent. I whispered, "This is mine now." From my coat pocket I pulled the small rock I'd painted the night before. One word, enough. I placed it carefully on a stone at the water's edge and stepped back. No grand gesture. No final confrontation. Just letting go. I turned and walked away, steady, calm, neither rushed nor regretful. The wind stirred across the lake. The leaves whispered. The rock remained. They saw my file. But they never saw my strength, until I walked away without needing applause.